Good evening. Today is the 9th of January, about 7:39 p.m. here in New York, and we will be starting our first session of the SoapUI Ready API web service testing. This is a bootcamp session, so we'll be meeting from Monday through Thursday between the hours of 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is going to run for 2 weeks. So we are starting today, 9th of January, so we will be finishing it off like on 19th, I guess. So we have shared the schedule with you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Irfan, spelled as I-R-F-A-N, and I will be your trainer, and I will be with you for the next 2 weeks. And we will be learning a lot of SoapUI tool, which will help you in testing the web services. I welcome you all. Thank you for being here. I know that you guys are all very excited to get this thing going, and I'm equally excited. So let's start and try to learn this SoapUI. So to begin with, we will be looking at the environment first. So in order to test the web services, we should be downloading the tool. So we'll go ahead and then talk about SoapUI as a tool, and we'll see as how we could download it. We'll talk about the different versions of SoapUI, and then make sure that you learn as how to download and prepare the environment to do the testing. Now, as far as the testing of the web services is concerned, we're gonna be testing some live web services. We have a bunch of web services that we have been using all along. So I'm going to start off pretty basic in the beginning. So today and tomorrow I'm going to keep it pretty basic. Try and make sure that we lay out the foundation first. We get to know like what we are testing first, so with the basic web services, and then after that we'll try to ramp up. So in the remaining 6 sessions, it's going to be some heavy lifting that we would be doing in order to learn both the XML-based web services as well as REST web services that is going to be sending the request response using the JSON object. Okay, so anything that I have said, if it is not making sense at this time, don't worry about it, because we will not leave any stone unturned when it comes to like learning and mastering this web service testing in the next 2 weeks. So I will do my best to transfer this knowledge in these 8 sessions. So I'm going to do my part. What I would request is you folks should also be putting your 100% into it. Now, how are we going to be gauging the performance? How would I know whether you're going to be learning this or not? Now, the best way to gauge ourselves is we will be giving you some assignments. So at the end of every session, there will be an assignment, and you are supposed to be submitting those assignments by the end of the week. So Monday through Thursday, we will be working, learning, and then you'll have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Of course, it's off from learning, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be doing anything, because that 3 days is what you'll be using to complete the assignments. So when we come back next Monday, you should have submitted all the 4 assignments, and that way I can take a look into how we are progressing. So that's going to be the agenda. Now, in terms of how we will be conducting this course, if you go to our website, TrainingRite.com, and look at the SoapUI web service link, that's going to take you to the contents of this course. I will do my best to cover as much as I can in this 4 sessions. So these are the major topics that we got to be covering. I'm going to do my best to cover as much as I can. Let's say for whatever reason, if we are not able to cover, a couple of topics here and there, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be learning about those topics, because what we will be doing is we'll be giving you some videos, and you can watch those videos, and you should be able to complete your assignments through the videos. Now, what are the chances, or what is the number of or sort of like the percent of the course that you might be learning from the videos and not in the live class? Probably about 5%. So 95% of the course I will be covering as a part of this live sessions. So again, I'm repeating myself. We're going to be meeting 8 sessions. Each session is going to be 2 hours long. You all have been muted. You have the option of unmuting yourself. Whenever you have a question, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask me that question. If I'm in the middle of something, I'll try to finish my thought and then I will address your question. So if you want to wait it out, we will have at least 5 to 10 minutes a Q&A at the end of every session. So this is from 7:30 to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. So at about like 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, we will stop and I will start taking your questions. So that Q&A might go up to like 10-15 minutes, depending on what kind of questions you have. This is a complete like 95 to 98% hands-on course, meaning that there is not going to be any theory that we would be doing. Anything that I will be talking about, that is going to be on day 1, because I got to lay out the plot of what we are getting into. But other than that, you will find me working hands-on for the rest of the course. So again, 95% of the course is hands-on, and very little of theory that we would be doing. Okay, now, as far as the audience is concerned, I guess I'm under the impression that most of you folks are, manual testers and automation testers. If you are automation tester, then it's a good thing, because what would happen is we will be doing some scripting here. We will be creating some framework. It's going to be like a data-driven framework wherein we'll be fetching the data from Excel and passing to our automated script. So when we talk about automation, automation is nothing but the ability to write some script. So scripts you write using some language. So what language we will be using as a part of this course? We'll be using a language called Groovy. G-R-O-O-V-Y. Groovy. So that's what we'll be doing. Now, I want to have a disclaimer here. I'm going to, again, do my best to teach you as much of Groovy as I can. So if you have some foundation with, let's say, Java language or C++ or C#.NET, anything like that, that's going to help you a lot, because Groovy is sort of like a distant cousin of Java. So if you happen to know Java, then learning Groovy would be a breeze. Again, how much of Groovy are going to be learning as a part of this course? Enough so that you could be doing your day-to-day activity. So what will be your day-to-day activity? Well, to test a web service, right? So we would be learning as how to test a web service. Now, it's not just going to be testing of a web service. So I'm going to be wearing different hats at different times. So believe it or not, I will become a developer at times. Not that this is a developer course, but I want you to get the complete idea of the complete picture of how it is done. So we're going to be doing the whole 9 yards, wherein I will become a developer, and then I will show you as how a web service can be created, and then I'll become a part of the DevOps team that is going to be going and then deploying it, and then of course we're going to be automated tester, where we will go and then we will test it. So that's basically what we will be doing. But again, the focus, I'm not going to digress a lot from the focus, which is automation testing of web services. Okay, so in order to test a web service, we got to know what is a web service, right? So I will try to keep this course balanced in the sense that I'm not going to use a lot of buzzwords, and I'm not going to try to push too many things in the first session. So I'll try to balance it by uh, making it not too technical, but at the same time we should be knowing everything there is to know about when it comes to a web service. So bear with me when I try to explain you about what a web service is, because we might not quickly come to a conclusion using the technical jargon of what a web service is, but eventually we will come to the definition of Wikipedia. If you go to Wikipedia and then if you look for a definition of web service, what that web service is going to be, we'll come to that definition in some time, but I will gradually, with baby steps, take you there. Okay, so the idea here is sharing of information, sharing of data between the systems. So I'm going to give you a little, story here, and then hopefully this will help you understand how things work. Now, any questions so far? Are you guys able to hear me all right? Are you able to understand? If you have any issues, please, you could type it into that chat window, or you could unmute yourself and then you could ask me any question. Now, if you wait for me to finish, you would probably be waiting for 2 hours, because I talk a lot and I talk continuously. So don't wait for me to pause, because probably I'm not going to pause for the next 2 hours. So get yourself in by unmuting yourself and ask a question, and I will stop at that time and I'll take your question if you have any. All right. Okay. So if you don't have any questions, I'm under the impression that you are getting everything. So let's get going. Let's move ahead and talk about a web service. Okay. Now, we know that there are different businesses, there are different domains out there. There could be a telecom domain, there could be healthcare, there could be retail, there could be pharma, there could be, it could be anything. So there is a need for systems to exchange information. Right now, rather than going too technical, I will talk about something that we all can relate to. Okay, so let's say you are traveling, right? You are traveling and you are like me in the sense that you played by the ear, meaning that you don't really have to plan a lot of things ahead. So you just take it as it goes. So meaning you will be traveling on the road, and then you would like to decide as where you are, and at that location probably you would like to rest for the rest of the evening by booking a hotel. So if you're driving in your car, you don't have your computer on, but you have a device in your hand, which is your mobile device, which is your phone. So using your phone, this is your phone, and forgive me for my bad drawing here. So imagine that this is a phone. So using your phone, you're gonna basically go and make a reservation. So wherever you are at this time. So let's say you are traveling between New York and Washington, D.C., and you are pretty close to Washington, D.C. So when you are close to Washington, D.C., you want to book a hotel. So you would open an app. So there are hundreds of apps out there to make a hotel reservation, right? So there is something called hotwire.com, there's something called priceline.com, there's something called kayak.com, there's something, and you could name it, right? I mean, Expedia and Travelocity and this and that, many. So I happen to choose, let's say, I mean, there is no affinity, there is no, such a relationship between me and the application that I'm talking about that I use all the time, but I'm comfortable using this application. So I open something called Priceline, right? And I open Priceline.com on my phone, and once I open that, then it's a very easy navigation for me. First thing that I select is, I don't even select an my GPS will track my location and it knows where I am. So let's say if I don't have my GPS on, then I would have selected from the drop down Washington, D.C., right? And then I would say that I'm booking a reservation. So my start date is, so this is my, arriving date, right? And you have a calendar, so you can choose the arriving date, so which is 01, 09, and 2016. And this, let's say, is the departure or leaving date or something like that. And this, you're leaving the very next day, so this is whatever it is, right? And this is the number of rooms, so you say 2 rooms, and then you say go. So think about it. This is a mobile device, right? On the mobile device, you have entered or selected some data, and you're pushing this button. And with some magic, you see, a lot of hotels with their pricing and all that. So think behind the scenes what is happening. So from the mobile device, it goes over the internet to the server. The server of what? The server of Priceline. So it's going to go to the server of Priceline, and on that server, there is something on that server which is going to take this information, and then whatever it does on the server, some processing, and then it returns some information back. And on a different page, you see that there are n number of hotels with $100 and $120 and $205, depending on whatever it is. Maybe this is a 4-star, this is 3-star, this is 3.5 star, right? Something like that. So you see some results. So basically, you have sent some information over the internet, and you are receiving some information back in here, right? So what is happening here is, on the server, you have here something called a web service. And what is that web service? Web service is nothing but it is some code. It is some program that is written using some language. So the language can be anything. We don't really care what that language is. It could be Java, it could be C++, it could be PHP, it could be, whatever the language is. So there is some language, using that language, there is some code in here. The code that the developers are writing or creating, that is specific to this business. So the business here says that, Priceline says that, okay, if somebody is looking for a hotel room, I should be able to provide that hotel information in here, because Priceline is nothing but a broker that kind of like gives you the information about flights and hotels and rental cars and stuff like that. All right. Now, if you understand the whole architecture here, now you can replace Priceline by anything, and the story pretty much remains the same. So the consumer could be different, and the provider might be something different, but basically the story in terms of the architecture pretty much remains the same. So even if you don't care about Priceline, don't worry about it, but try and understand the big picture here, which is, somebody is looking for information, and that is a consumer. And a consumer can be a mobile device, right? It can be a mobile device like a phone, or the consumer could be a browser, a computer with a browser, with a laptop or whatever, or a consumer could be another system. So we're going to be talking about another system in few minutes. But right now, just think that a consumer is a browser with a laptop, or it could be like a mobile phone. And on that, we have a UI. We have a UI, or it's also referred to as graphical user interface. Graphical user interface is nothing but the representation of how you want to capture the data, or how you want to render or show the data. So programmers who are front-end designers, they will be designing the UI part of it, the graphical user interface, for either the phone's mobile device or for the browser. So those front-end designers will be doing that, right? And some programmers, developers, they would be building the server side logic, which is nothing but this web service. So what kind of code they would be writing in there? When they are writing some code is nothing but using some programming language. They'll be writing some functions, let's say, right? Okay, the way the code is written, again, I am not trying to make you an expert, but I am going to give you an overview from a 40,000 feet above, right? So it's not going to be very granular. I am going. Eventually, I will go and be very specific. But right now, I'm just trying to give you, as they call it, the big picture. So basically, in the code, when they write, they will be using some object-oriented programming language, right? So when they use object-oriented programming languages to write the code, basically there is something called a class, right? And then from the class, they will be inside this class, whatever that class is. So let's say the class is about Priceline hotel reservation. So there will be this class will be about hotel reservations, let's say, right? Hotel reservations, that's what it is. So inside the class, you will have what is called the functions or the methods inside the class. So there will be, think about it, there will be, when you are dealing with a hotel reservation, so it could be make a reservation, right? Or book a reservation, however you would like to name it. So or it could be like new reservation, right? So there can be a function called new reservation, and then there can be a function called change reservation, and then there can be a function called cancel reservation, right? So these are functions inside a class. So when the developer, when he's trying to create a web service, understand a web service is nothing but some code. That code is in the form of a class, and inside the class you will have some methods. Again, depending on what language they are using, they will be writing some code, something like this: public void, name of the function is new reservation, let's say, right? And then there will be, for this new reservation, generally when you're making a new reservation, what is the minimum information that you would like to provide? Well, you would say, oh, we should provide like the location, right? And we should also provide like, let's say, the arrival date, and we should also the departure date and the number of rooms, right? So and then there could be customer or passenger name, right? And passenger phone number, right? Stuff like that. So these are basically the information that you would be passing to this function. All right. So for this function to work, we have to supply all this. And where is all this information coming from? This information will come from the user interface. So on a mobile device or on a computer, on a laptop, we will be capturing all this information, and then we will be sending the information to the server, right? Okay, when you send the information to the server, right, so that information will go over a protocol called HTTP protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, right? So using this transfer protocol, so using and I will give you all the documentation. Right now I'm just writing these things, but I'll give you the documentation of what I'm telling you, so you'll have enough time. I don't want you to just jot down or write anything. Just hear me, right? And then you'll have this session is being recorded right now, so you will have the video of this, and then on top of that we'll give you some documentation of what I'm showing you. So try to listen to it as a story right now, and of course as you're listening to it, probably you would have some questions. If you want to jump in, or else if you don't have any questions right now, keep it for the end of the session. But focus, and if it is bothering you, if you're not able to completely understand what I'm saying, then stop me right now, because no point in like continuing further if you're not able to understand me for whatever reason, if I'm speaking too fast, speaking too low, or my whatever. So communicate with me. The objective, the goal here is at the end of 8 sessions, I want to make sure that you are very good in testing the web services. That's my objective. That's my goal. So together we will achieve it. So coming back, when we are sending the information, so let's say you're going from point A to point B. So we have some data here, right, that I am sending. So this is, let's say, point A to the server to point B. So when I'm sending the data, so you have some goods, right? You have some goods and you have to send from point A to point B. Then you need like, okay, how are you transporting them? How are you sending them? So point A can be somewhere in China, or I mean, why China? It could be UK or it could be Germany. And point B can be, let's say, Mexico, or it could be like anywhere in South America. So when you are sending some tangible goods, if you're sending some, whatever it is, fill in the blank, how will those things go? I mean, if it is the paintings, probably they will go in a plane. If it is like, something heavy, then it might go in a boat or in a ship or whatever. So the idea here is, what are you sending? You're sending some data. So you don't have to put the data in a boat or in a plane or in a ship. So basically the data is going to go inside what is called, it is going to travel over HTTP protocol, right? HTTP protocol, understand that as a means of sending, goods. So it's like a road. It's like a road, right? So you're going from point A to point B, so you go on a road, right? But you go on a road, so that's the basic thing you got to have, HTTP. But you got to put the stuff inside a truck, right? So that inside a truck, that is called SOAP protocol. So we will be using over the HTTP, I will be using something called a SOAP protocol. And what SOAP stands for? It stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. So what this means is, we will have a way of packaging the data when we are sending the data. The data is, location, arriving date, a departing date, a number of rooms, and name of the passenger, blah, 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 whatever the information. So we need to send the information from point A to point B, and the way the information goes is in the form of the SOAP protocol. In SOAP protocol, the rule is you got to keep the information in XML. You got to keep the information in XML, and not only keep the information in XML, but also package the information into what is called an envelope, right? So first of all, the information has to be inside the envelope, and it has to be in XML. So this is called the SOAP envelope. So whenever we are sending the data from the client to the server, right, or from point A to point B, the data, in case of an XML based or SOAP based web services, the data is going to go in the form of XML sitting inside an envelope, right? Now this is for one type of web services when we are testing. So basically, when we are testing web services can be of at least a minimum of like 2 types. So when we are talking about web services can be XML based, right? So SOAP, web services, or it can be REST web services. So right now I am not discussing this. I will come back to it probably on day 4 or day 5. I will come back to it. Probably on day 5 I'll come back to it, right? So for the first 4 days we're going to be dealing with it, and after we know this, learning this is a piece of cake. I mean, you would learn it like in no time. You would learn REST services, provided you have a good knowledge of the XML based, SOAP based web services. So right now my focus is here. So again, coming back, so we have a consumer that is going to send the data over the internet to the server, and when we are sending the data to the server, the data is going to be sent in the form of an SOAP envelope, right? Now, so let's take a look a little bit about the SOAP envelope. right? So as I said, the data has to be in the form of XML. So I'm not going to write the pure XML, but XML is nothing but a language of tags. So you will have something like soap envelope, and then you would have a header, and then you would have body, and then you would have like whatever, and then end of body and end of soap envelope. So all this right will be inside an envelope, right? Inside an envelope, all this will be inside an envelope. So we have to have a little knowledge of XML. So now notice that there are many parts in here. I talked about HTTP, I talked about SOAP, I talked about REST, I talked about server, I talked about the client, a consumer, a provider. So right now it's a little bit uncomfortable because I'm throwing kind of like too many terms at you, but by the end of this session today itself, everything will be very clear to you folks. All right, so give me some time to put these pieces together and then make sure that you understand the whole big picture. So coming back, when we are sending the data from the client to the server, the data needs to be going in the SOAP envelope, and the data is all XML data. So what kind of data we have? So we'll have something. Let's say if I tell you right now that if you look at this one, if you look at this one. Now, what is your understanding of this? So you would say that, cell V, cell Y, different people would pronounce it in different ways. Not only that, but you would probably not know what that is unless you come from the Indian subcontinent. I mean, because that's a very popular and very nice name. But for most of our friends who are taking this session now, if they are not from the Indian subcontinent, they would not know what this is. So even if I tell you that this is a name, then they would not know if it is what's the gender of this. So we have some data here, right? Now, XML is not just about data, but it is also about something called metadata. Metadata basically describes the data. So if this is a data, right, and let's say if this is a data, and let's say if this is a data, now can I do something like this? Can I put here and say that, let's say tester. So now we know immediately that Selby is a tester. Now, so this tester that is between this bracket and that less than or greater than this element. So this tester is basically either called a tag or an element or a node, right? So that's how you refer this. So Selby is some data, and an element or a tag will describe this data. So now we know that Selby is a tester. Now, how about this? Type equals selenium, right? So if you see now, then we know that Selby is a selenium tester. Now, if I do this tester and type equals, let's say, ETL, right? So now we know that Towar, or forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name right, Towar is a ETL tester. So likewise for Priya, we could say that she's, whatever tester. So we are not only having some data, but we are describing the data using XML, right? So in a nutshell, to begin with, we also need to understand the data that is moving back and forth, which is inside that XML. So Rome was not built in a day, so you don't expect yourself to learn all of these things in just one day. But I'm just trying to highlight and put some, attention or focus on different things in here. So going back, you will see that we will not only have to know about the server, the whole everything about the server, and not only about the web services, but also about how we are passing the data. And if you look at the data inside the SOAP envelope, you should be able to understand, that this is about the arrival date. This is about the departure date. So the data, in a nutshell, could be something like this. It could be arrival date, right? And here is 01/06/2016 and end of arrival date, right? So when you see now, this is the data that is for the arrival date as the parameter that we are going to pass to the function that we are going to test. So let's say we are testing a new reservation. So the new reservation is expecting, if you see here, new reservation is expecting location, arrival date, departure date, the number of rooms or passenger name, and stuff like that. So that data is going to come inside this envelope. So that data is going to be looking something like that. It is going to look like a SOAP, right, envelope, right, and so many other things about of that. And then there will be like a header, right, and then there will be like body, and then there will be like something like, say as an example, bear with me for a second when I say that TR, let's say TR colon, and let's say there will be arrival date, right, and the data is going to be whatever 01/16/2016 and end of arrival date, right? So this arrival date is going to be inside this SOAP envelope, and this is what is being passed, right? This is what is being sent to the server. So when we are sending some information to the server, so we have to say that this information is going for whatever function it is going for. So let's say it is going for a function called new reservation. So this new reservation is nothing but a function that receives these parameters. So those parameters are, let's say, departure date, right, a leaving date, and then there is a number of rooms, right, and then there is location, location. So all of this data is being passed, and this data is being passed to this particular function of a web service. So coming back, our focus should be about learning things about, on the server there is a web service, and the web service is written using a language called VB.NET, Java, or C# or C++ or whatever language, right? And the code that is written will be in a web service class, and the web service class will have some methods, and the terminology or the jargon for the methods are referred as operations. So operations are nothing but the names of the methods that you would be testing inside a web service. So inside a web service, you will be testing for operations, and operations expect some of the operations or most of the operations, they will be, you have to send what? Parameters to those operations. All right, and if the operation is book a new reservation, so the parameters to that would be location, and then arrival date, departure date, whatever. Now let's say if the operation that we are checking is change reservation. Now change reservation you can test it if there was a reservation, right? So when you're booking a reservation, a part of the book reservation is it takes all this information which are called parameters that you will pass to this to this operation, and depending on what it is supposed to do inside it, probably inside it the business logic is, first of all, we have to check if the rooms are available. So depending on the arrival date and departure date, let's say if there's a Super Bowl going on, the whole world wants to be there in that town, so you cannot be booking reservations because probably those rooms are taken already. So part of the business logic is, are those rooms available for the given data. So the input parameters, when they come, the part of the logic is first to check the inventory if there is a room available. If there is a room available, then we should go ahead and then book it. And a part of the booking is it should return, it should send some information back. So that is called response, what the web service, what response it gives. So in case of a book new reservation, the response should be a reservation number, right? A confirmation number or something like that. So let's say if you are buying a stock, right? So buying a stock, if you go to a brokerage like E-Trade or Ameritrade or Scott Trade or any of those, right? So if you're purchasing Microsoft, stocks, so basically what information you need, basically you need information like the stock ticker, MSFT, and how many you are buying. You're buying, let's say, 1,000 stocks, right? And some more information. Is it on margin, or do you have like enough balance in your account that you could purchase that? So things like that. But the basic information is what stock you're buying, so the stock ticker and all that. So once you send that information, if it was able to successfully place the stock on, purchase the stock, it will come up with a confirmation number. So if you get the confirmation number, then you know that, okay, you were able to successfully purchase that. So likewise, if you get a confirmation back, then you know that that room was booked in your name for such and such date and all that. In case of a change reservation, what do you think the input parameter would be? First of all, you have to find that reservation to change, right? So the input parameter for that would be the reservation number, and then what change you want. Probably the change is change the date, right? Or maybe change the room type. So whatever it is. So basically you have to pass. So the whole story here is, when we are testing a web service, you have to know basically A, B, and C of a web service. Now you would say, what do you mean by A, B, C of a web service? So whenever you are testing a web service, first of all, you should know what a web service is. Web service is some code. I'm repeating myself for the 4th time now, that web service is some code. That code is basically in a class, and it can be one or more functions. Those functions will take or can take parameters, that is input information, and then they will return you some data, which is nothing but the response. So a part of the request to that operation, right? Now notice the jargon now. The jargon has changed. The part of the request to that operation will consist of parameters. So now I'm no longer using the regular common language. I'm speaking a little bit technical jargon now. So in a web service, you will have code. The code is in the form of a class. Inside the class, there will be functions, one or more functions. Those functions are referred to as operations. So a function can take more than one parameters or many parameters. So that is a part of the request that is coming to the operation. And the operation will do some business logic and return or send some information back. Sending of the information back is called response. So a web service receives a request. The request will consist of one or more parameters that you are passing to an operation, and the response will be some data that you will be receiving back, right? Okay, with that said, the request that is going to an operation of a web service can come from any client. The client can be a mobile device, or can be a laptop, or can be anything. Now we as web service testers or software engineers who are going to test that web service, do you think that we need to have a GUI or a UI to do the testing? Chances are the UI is not even, because the designers will build that, right? So they might have not built that. So the first thing is the web service is built here. The web service is already built. There is no UI, but we need to test it. So what I'm saying is, you do not need a UI to test a web service. You get that? You don't need a UI to test the web service. So we can be testing a web service by passing the data. So passing of the data comes over the SOAP protocol, over the HTTP protocol, and it comes in the form of the envelope. So that information should go inside the envelope and come over here, right? So if we don't have a GUI for that, we could be using a tool to send that information to the server. So in order to send that information to the server, which is hosting your web service, we should know ABC of that. Now, what do you mean by ABC? A stands for the address or the location or the endpoint of the web service. Meaning, where is it web service deployed? So I could be in Mumbai in India, or I could be in London in UK, and I want to be testing a web service. Okay, why talk about Mumbai? Why talk about London? I'm here in New Jersey, in New York, New Jersey area, right? And the web service that we are going to be testing in the next 5 minutes, that web service is deployed, that web service is hosted. Now notice the word hosted, deployed. So that is running, that is sitting on a server in San Francisco. So we have two servers. We have a server in San Francisco. We have a server in London. So my database will be sitting on a server in London, and down the road we will be doing something with the databases. And my web service is sitting on a server in San Francisco. I am a consumer. I will be testing that web service, and I'm sitting here in New York, right? So it cannot be more distributed. I mean, I don't want to do a web service testing wherein I have everything sitting on my laptop. No, we want you to have the real life experience. So I have deployed and I have created this whole setup in such a way that we could come as close as we can to a real life. All right. So now, booking a reservation, changing a reservation, canceling a reservation, and all that makes sense. We can understand. But to make it very easy, we need to know these three things, which is address, where it is deployed. So I'm going to give you the address. The address will be in the form of a URL. Right, so it'll be the name of the server. So it'll be something like this: HTTP www.ibm.com/. So it is hosted on IBM server, let's say. So in our case, it will be hosted on TrainingRite.com. So we have a server. It will be hosted on that. So that is nothing but the endpoint or the address or the destination or the location of the web service. Then we talk about the binding. What do you mean by binding? So the binding is inside the web service, we have to test a web service, right? So we said web service is the code, and the code is a class, and there are some functions inside the class. So excuse me. So the name of the functions is nothing but your binding, your operations that you should be testing. So at any given time, if you have been asked to test a web service, you should first question yourself as, do I know the ABC of the web service? A stands for the address, B stands for binding, C stands for the contract. So the binding is nothing but it should be exposing the names of the operations that you should be testing. Operations are nothing but the functions. So it should give you the names of the operations. So there can be, like, inside a web service, there could be like 27 different operations. So the binding of that web service is to know about the operations, the name of the operations, and not only the name of the operations, but we also need to know what do we need to pass to those functions, right, or to those operations. So that comes as a part of your contract, because if you are sending some data to let's say an operation that is rate quote. Rate quote is, you need to find out, like, I mean, you know, Hilton in San Francisco. If I want to stay in Hilton, I would like to find out, like, for that night, how much it is going to cost. I don't want to book the reservation unless I know it. So rate quote is going to give me the quote of that room on that day for that particular location and for that you know, brand. which is Marriott or Hilton or whatever. So it's nothing but the parameters that you're passing to rate code as an operation. Now, the parameters will have some data type, right? So because date should be in a certain format, and if you're submitting the number of rooms is what? You don't want to say A, B, C or string character for the number of rooms. It takes a data type of integer. A number of rooms cannot be 1.5, right? So there should be some validation in terms of, what kind of data that you're passing. So we need to know the type of the data, what you're passing, and that comes as a part of the contract. So how are they going to provide you all this information? They're going to provide you all this information in a file called WSDL, which is nothing but WSDL file, Web Service Description Language. Okay, so I am all over now. As you can see, if you're looking at the screen, you're like, whoa, what is this? I mean, I cannot make any sense out of this, but if you heard my story so far, it is very simple story. The story is a web service will be on the server. The server is wherever it is. It really doesn't matter, because with the internet you can connect to anywhere on planet Earth. We can connect now with the internet. So if the server is in Tokyo, Japan, fine. I mean, as long as you know the endpoint, which is nothing but the address. So we need to know if we are going to be doing the testing of a web service, ABC. ABC is nothing but address binding contract. All that information is given inside a WSDL file. So the WSDL file itself is XML file. So we need to know as how to parse or how to understand that WSDL file. So I'm going to give you a glimpse of a WSDL file, right? A sneak peek of that WSDL file. So let's say if I tell you that you have been hired to test a web service, and that web service is a math web service. So, and I would say that think about, what do you think should be the operations of a math web service? What do you think the operations? So I'm not caring about the address as where we are going to be deploying. So the address would be some server in California, in San Francisco. Okay, that's given. So address you would know in a minute. Think about the binding part. The binding part is what kind of operations you could have. So if we are testing a math web service, in math, what do? You do addition, right? So there should be a operation called addition, and in its basic format, you can add what? At least two numbers. So that addition as a function should have two parameters. So there will be a parameter like input number 1, comma, input number 2. You could add more than two numbers, but in its minimum format, you should take two arguments, right? And if the developer, if he is writing the code, what do you think the code is going to be? Num1 plus num2, right, is going to be the results that you are putting inside this function. So this is going to be, let's say, the result, and you could say return a result. So if you are returning a result, if this is an integer, the result we could have either it as a double or an integer. So we'll have some data type, right? So we are returning a result as a data, and this is of the type integer. So my function cannot be a void. It is like integer it is returning. So public integer addition takes number 1, takes number 2, it adds. Now you would say, oh, this is programming, I don't know. I would say, fine, you don't have to know about this. What do you as a web service tester need to know about this? Because this is a developer job. What you need to know is inside the math web service, there is a function called addition, and it is taking two parameters, and one parameter is of the type integer, second parameter is of the type integer, and it is going to return something that is of the type integer. That's all you need to know. What is happening inside, it is none of our business. This being addition, you know that, okay, this is adding, and we can all understand, and we can also write some program like that. Not that we need to know that, right? But if it is a complex addition, finding out the distance between Mars and Pluto, then this is not the thing. And do you care about that? You don't care about that at that time. What you will care about is, okay, if we have to supply whatever we have to supply, and we don't even know what we have to supply, right? If we are finding out the distance between Mars and Jupiter, I don't know what. So they will give us a documentation where they will say that in the binding portion of it, it will take 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters or whatever, right? So we will get to know the name of that, and in the contract, it will give you not only the parameters, but also the data type of the parameters, all that it will be given, right? So for us, we need to know about this. So if it is a math web service, you think there is only going to be addition? No, there will be something called subtraction. There will be something called multiplication. There will be something called division. There will be something, so square root and cube and this and that, because it's all math, right? So when we are testing a web service, we have to say that, oh, how many operations are going to be there, what each operation is expecting in terms of input data, and what they are returning in terms of output, which is nothing but the response, right? Which we need to know. And then we will be testing it. So far, so good, correct? Right? Okay, now that I have given you some idea of it, let us take a simple example. It can be a math web service that we want to test, or it can be, let's say, I'm going to take you to slightly complex, not a complex, but an example of an e-commerce portion of an e-commerce, right? Web service. So one of the features of doing commerce electronically is you should be able to pay not in cash but through things like credit card or check number and whatever. So let's do something that we have been doing all our lives, is paying by a credit card. So electronically, if you have to pay a credit card, so let's say there is a web service for that, and the name of the web service is ePay Systems, right? Web service. So first things first, inside this web service, there should be some operations, correct? So when it comes to e-commerce, about credit cards, what can you do in a credit card? So if you are from an e-commerce industry, or if you have some experience about credit cards and all that, then you will know the features or functions of that web service. So inside, if you're dealing with credit cards, what can you do? You will do a sale, right? Now you can also do something called authorization, and you can also do something called refund. You can also do something called void. So these are some of the features, functions of a credit card business. So sale. So all of these are what? All of these are operations, right? So if you see, these are nothing but operation. So inside an ePay system web service, there is one or more operations that we have to be testing. So sale is an operation. And what do you mean by sale? Okay, you have purchased something, you have to pay for it. So the sale will process your transaction. So the sale will expect some parameters, right? So what parameters? You are doing something, paying by a credit card, right? So you have to give some information about that credit card. So you will give what? Credit card number, right? And you will give, like, you don't even have to say it's an American Express, or you don't even have to say that it's a Visa, because when you put the number, it automatically knows that it's a Visa or American Express or MasterCard, right? If you open your wallet and if you look into the Visa card, it starts with 4. And if you look into MasterCard, it's so there is like standard formatting to know that what is a valid card or not. So this is the number. What else do you need to process a credit card? You need probably the expiration information, right? So in the expiration, if you are entering the information, you will enter the expiration month information, and then you will enter the expiration year information. Then you will also enter the CVV2, or the back of the card you will enter. So in its minimum format, You need to know the number, month, year, CVV2, and how much amount you are processing. So we need to pass this information to, let's say, sale as a function. When you pass this information, now, what do you think a credit card number looks like? So it will be 4321609, something like that. And then expiration month is what? Like AB? No, this is wrong, right? So it can be 01 through 12. That's basically the valid information. So we have to enter this information. So when we are entering the information, we'll be entering all of this, and then we will be basically passing through the SOAP envelope from where, when we are doing the testing, we will be doing it from a tool called SoapUI tool. In the SoapUI tool, we will be entering all this information into the SOAP envelope and send it. So this SoapUI tool is on my machine in New York, which I'll show it to you right now, right? And then I will configure this web service, enter all the information. The envelope is going to go over the internet to, we need to know the ABC, right? So the address of the server, it is going to go there. So on the server, when it reaches there on the server, since it is going through the HTTP protocol, it will go on the server and it will knock on the server. So think about the server as my house as the server. Right now, if somebody is coming into my house, they cannot be jumping through the window or so they will knock on the door. Even though the entry points into my house could be my garage or could be my deck, could be my back door, but usually people would come from the front door, right? And they will knock there. So when you are sending the data, which is coming as this HTTP on the SOAP envelope, it comes and it knocks on a port number on the server. So that port number is 80. So it will come on 80. So somebody could be knocking at my door, right? I'm expecting a FedEx package, right? Now, the FedEx guy could be coming and knocking on the door. Unless I go and open the door, I cannot receive it, correct? So likewise, so this data is coming here and knocking on this port. So somebody has to go and open the port for the data to come in. And that somebody is called a web server, right? So that's a software that must be on this server. So let's briefly talk about the configuration of the server. So the server will have some operating system. It can be Unix, it can be Linux, it can be let's say Windows, and we can have different flavors of it, right? I mean, when it comes to Linux, I mean, we could have CentOS, or we could have Red Hat, or Sun Solaris when it comes to like Unix, or when it comes to Windows, it could be Windows Server 2012, or it could be like whatever, right? So these are operating. So as an automation tester, do you really care about the operating system of the server where your web service is deployed? Well, if you know it, good. If you don't know, it doesn't matter too much, right? But you should know, right? So who is going to provide you that information? If they provide you that information in some documentation, good. But can you verify that that is exactly that operating system from your tool? Yeah, sure. I will show you as how to verify what is the server operating system, right? I will show you as how to verify that through the tool. What else you should know? I mean, you can know about the configuration in terms of like what is the RAM on it, like but we don't go into that many details unless we are doing some performance testing and all that. We are doing functional testing, so I'm not going to focus too much into like the configuration of the RAM and the hard drive and RPMs and all that. We're not going to worry about that. So what I will worry about is operating system, and I will worry about the web server software. So what is the web server software? Web server software is that software which basically acknowledges the requests that are coming to the server. So those requests are coming in the form of the SOAP envelope. So the web servers, there are different web servers. There's something called IIS. There's something called WebSphere, right? There's something called WebLogic. There's something called Tomcat, JBoss, and the list keeps going up, right? So you have any there can be a BMW, there can be a Mercedes, there could be a Lexus, there could be like Acura, there could be like, so all these are cars that will take you from point A to point B. So there is IIS, WebSphere, WebLogic, Tomcat, JBoss, all these are web servers. Their job is to receive the request that is coming on the port, and then parse this request, open this envelope, and then understand that XML that is in there. So we will talk about something called a well-formedness of the XML. So when it comes to parsing, it has to check for there are rules and regulations of reading the XML. It has to make sure that the data that is coming in is well-formed. So well-formed data is, if you open a tag, you have to close a tag. It is case sensitivity, you have to check. So all that we will be looking into how it does that. But the job of the web server is to parse the data, not only parse the data, but also pass that data to that operation. So whatever that operation is, book new reservation, so it will give the data to that. And then it will wait. Now this language, object-oriented programming language, which is Java or whatever, that code will run. It will talk to the database to find out if the rooms are available and this and that, and then it will return some data. So this web server again, oh, okay, what the data is, okay, this is a confirmation number, it takes that, it puts it into this, and then says go, and then it comes back to whoever the consumer is, and then we render the data in here. So think about it. If our UI is all good, let's say there is a UI is all good, we are sending the data, and the data comes. If let's say the web server is sleeping, right? It is not up. Then even though the web service is good, all code is good, but we cannot reach there because the web server is not up and running. So we got to look into when a web service testing, we have to look into if the web server is up and running, and when it takes the data, when it passes the data, when it sends the data back, before even the data comes back, it has to send some instructions, and those instructions are nothing but, those are called codes, and to be specific, those are called HTTP code. HTTP code is what is the rule of driving. So when you are driving, when you get out of your house, and if you want to go and get some milk, so you're going to a grocery store, you're driving. So when you get out of the house, you cannot just be driving. As simple chore of getting a milk, you cannot be. You have to obey the rules. So if the rule is basically when you go, there is a street light, and there you see that it's a red. So you cannot be going on a red. So you will stop, because that's a rule saying that red means stop. Green means go, right? At least in United States, that's like that. If you go to my country, I am originally from India, it's always a go. I mean, there's no red, no green, no, you keep going always. So if somebody stops you, you just run over. No, you don't run over. But basically, so that's the idea is you have to follow the rules. So when you send the data, whatever data is coming here, when we send the data, and if the web server is able to process the data, first thing it says is, it says HTTP status code it sends is 200. So 200 means that all is good. Everything is fine. All is good in this world of web services. Everything is good. Sometimes the HTTP status code can be 500. 500 means that server error. So something went wrong here. So when we are sending the data, and when we have to do some verifications or assertions, we have to do. Some of the assertions are checking for the HTTP status code. We should always be getting 200. If we don't get a 200, that means that all red flags should come up, like why we are not getting a 200, what is wrong. And then you can look for, okay, if we did not get 200, what is the code that we got? Sometimes you get 404. That means that the web service operation name that you are trying to connect to is not there. Somebody might have changed it. So something might have happened. Or you might get 500. 500 means that while running this query, when you connected to the database took a very long time, and it is not returning the data. So there will be a timeout, and the server will return a 500. That means something went bad. And then we could look into what went bad and all by looking into the logs and stuff like that. But the big picture here is, when you are looking for a web service is working good or not, you should be looking for HTTP status code as one of the main things that you should be looking for. There are so many other things also we should be looking for, and I will teach you that when we are dealing with the assertions. Okay, So I will take a step back and notice that I have been talking for a little over an hour and a half, and we have not done any practical, right? And I told you this training is going to be 95 to 98% practical. But I also told you on day one, I have to lay out the plot. I got to tell you some story on day one, and this was the story, and kind of like introducing you. Now we're going to go, and then we will do everything hands-on from here onwards. So very few times I will be getting into theory from here onwards. It's going to be all hands-on. So before we begin, let's set up a scenario. Scenario is we are working for a company where we have developers creating web services, and we have to go and test the web services. Now, for web service testing, the consumption or the usage of the web service could come from a front end, or it might not come up from a front end, right? So it's not mandatory that to test a web service you have to have a front end. Without a front end, you should be able to test it, right? So that's why even though for processing a credit card, you need to have the UI to do it. But let's say in our agile way of building software, that sprint is coming down the road in our backlog of catalog. So we have it come in, like, let's say in week 7. So, but in week 3 that we are in right now, we have the web service already created, and we need to test it, right? So in this sprint, we need to test the web service. So there is no UI. So how are we going to test it? We need to have a tool. The tool is, there are at least a dozen tools out there in the industry that can do a web service testing. But one of the most popular tools is the SoapUI tool. And it comes from a company called Smart Bear, right? Okay, so in SoapUI, there are 2 versions of the tools. There is something called an open source version, SoapUI tool. So this is open source, right? Open source, free, right? And the other one is Ready API. This is the licensed version, right? That means that you have to pay some dollars. So basically, Ready API offers you hundreds of features, right? Lot of things where you just click, and then get the job done. Here in the free, there are not many features available out of the box. So that's why it is free. So what do? You have to write code using Groovy. So you have to write a lot of code using Groovy. So here there is not a need, because when you pay them the dollars, they will give you all these features. Click, 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 and then things will be done. Right? Okay. Now, unlike some other tools like HP, UFT, which will also do some web service testing, the UFT tool that you can use for web service testing is going to cost you at least 10 grands for a single license to even get started with one tester. Right? So let's say you have like 4 testers, 5 testers. It's before even you could lift your finger, you have to spend like $50,000 there. But here, each license for 1 year is about $400. So imagine, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you could just go and get like 10 licenses for $4,000 versus $50,000 if you need that. And but UFT is a very popular tool. It can do 100 different things. But when it comes to web service testing, one of the features you are going to get out of the $50,000 you spend is web service. But this is completely web service testing. It cannot do any other testing. So if you have a client server application, you cannot be testing it, because this is purely for web service API testing. That's what it is. All right. So we'll be spending that kind of a money, but we don't even spend any money because there is something called an evaluation version of this. So we will be going and downloading the evaluation version of Ready API, and we'll also be using the open source. And for day 1, day 2, and part of day 3, I will use Ready API, and day 4, I will take you into Groovy scripting with this SoapUI open source tool. But today I'll show you as how to download both of them. So before I go there, let me take a step back and let me ask you folks how we do it. How we do it. So let me take your questions and okay. Okay. Do you have any questions? Anybody, any questions? Do you have any questions? If you don't have any questions, let me get going and let me show you as how to and where to download that. So if you go to Google, you could type download, right? Download SoapUI. And when you do that, it is going to take you to download open source. So when you go there, basically it is telling you a couple of things in here. Number one, it is telling you that for API testing, there is an open source versus there is a pro version of it. So for the open source, and if you look into what it can do, this is some comparisons. Right now, I don't even want you to read into all this. Just notice that there is a tick, 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 tick for this one, meaning that it can do a lot of stuff that the open source cannot do. All right. Okay. So we're going to be downloading that. So downloading of this requires you to click on that and then enter some information. Now, it is totally up to you if you want to enter your real information or if you want to, do whatever it is. The idea here is they're going to be calling you to find out if you could purchase the tool and stuff like that. So if you don't want to be getting nagged by these guys, then it's okay. You can make up some information and download it. But I would suggest that purchase this tool, because if you are a company, if you are a corporation, and if you will be using SoapUI for testing purpose, then you have to purchase the license of this because it's a fantastic tool. There's a lot of stuff that you could do with this tool. So I would suggest that you all should be buying this tool. Okay. There's a quick question here. When is REST versus SOAP services used, and why? Okay. There is a whole 60 minutes or maybe 2-hour presentation I have able on that. What is because if you see in my past 1 hour, I was just not even able to introduce you to anything yet. I just gave you some stories, but I'll have like a 1-hour session on REST versus SOAP, but very briefly right now, in the year 2009, something happened in the year 2009. Web services has been around for a very long time. When I started my career in the 1996, 1997, we were already doing web services at that time. So those were XML-based web services, right? So we used to build those web services in Visual Basic, and there used to be RMI, there used to be Corba and all that on the Java side, and on the on the Microsoft side, there was something called COM, Component Object Model, and a Distributed Component Object Model, DCOM, and all that. That was in the year 1997, 1998. Then in the beginning of 99, Microsoft announced that they would come out with something called .NET. And with .NET came the ability to build web services, completely web services. They were moving away from, the original distributed COM and all that. They moved into web services. So we started building web services at that time. So in the year 2000, up to 2009, 2010, it was by default, when you build a web service, it would be a SOAP XML-based web services. In 2009, something huge, big happened, and that was the invention of a smartphone, with Apple coming out with this iPhone. So that changed the whole dynamics of the web services, because now you are putting the cell phones in the hands of everyone out there, and they were apps. So all of a sudden there was huge load on the servers with a lot of traffic coming from mobile devices. So on the web server, if you take a look on the web server, this web server, different web servers like IIS and all that, they have to open the SOAP envelope, and they have to parse the data, they have to check for the well-formedness of the data and all that. So when there was heavy traffic, it would take a lot of time to do that. So they started to add like more and more servers. So even if you add more servers, it would still reach a sweet point, and it was not giving you optimum performance even by adding more and more servers. So then they decided that, okay, we should look at the different architecture. So the different architecture was the REST architecture. So the REST architecture is no business of like having an envelope or parsing of the data and sending the data to the server, and on the server the web server has to open the envelope and then look into the well-formedness of the XML. So it was taking a lot of time. So all that went away, because now you were sending the data by removing the SOAP protocol, and simply over the wire, over the HTTP protocol, you were sending the data. And you were not packaging the data in the envelope. The data would go as a part of the URL. So meaning that you would be appending the URL and sending the data over the URL. So all that extra layers of processing went away, and the end result was REST was being adopted in a big way, because it was giving you optimum performance. So a lot of companies started to build REST services. So with REST services, the main story is still the same, the hosting and all that, but the way you will send the data and receive the data was slightly different, because you are no longer packaging the data into the envelope, but rather receiving the data in the form of a JSON object, something called a JavaScript object notation. So you should see how the data was coming back and how you could parse a JSON object to filter the data that you want and leave the rest of the data. So that part of programming we have to do when it comes to JSON or the REST API. So the immediate need or the reasoning behind REST versus SOAP is, if you need strong security, then go with SOAP-based web services. But if you need high performance, you have a lot of traffic, and you need to handle a huge amount of traffic with major data going back and forth, then the REST web service is the way to go. Now, implementation and the testing of this is different. So we're going to start at some point. So we'll be starting with SOAP today, and then eventually we'll be getting into REST later on. Okay, so coming back, we will be downloading so you will be entering the information, and then you would be downloading it. So you could, if you want, you could do that. So as an example, here you could be entering your first name, last name, work email, and all that, and then you could download it. So in some of my videos, I walk you through as how to download and all that, but you don't even need anything to do that. You just enter, and then it is going to give you a file to download. So once you download, you can double click, and it takes literally about less than 3 minutes to install it. So the installation is just following the prompts, just click, 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 and then it gets installed. Now it's an evaluation copy that is going to run on your machine for 14 days. For 14 days, it's going to run on your machine. So what I have done is I have a virtual machine. So here is my virtual machine. So I'm logging into my virtual machine right now. So I have different profiles. So I'm just logging in here. And once I log in, you see that I have done the installation of this Ready API, which is nothing but just you enter it, download it, and then install it. So if you take a look, let me show you that I have created a folder on my C drive called SoapUI Training. And in that SoapUI, if you see, yesterday I downloaded this this version, 1/8/2017. In the afternoon yesterday, I downloaded it, and the installation is just double clicking on it and then following, and then that is going to install it. So I have already installed. Once you follow the prompts, it will go ahead and then install, and basically this is the shortcut that I have for the installation. So this, when you click on that, this will install it, and since I already did it, so I'm going to cancel, and this is the whatchamacall, the pro version. Now let me show you as how to download the non-pro version, which is going to be a free version, and let me just do that as we are here. Let me just go ahead and then do that. So over here, I will just type soapui.org, and we go to that website, and on that website, download SoapUI. And when I do that, it takes me to the same page, and this is the open source. I'm just going to click on that, and as you can see, it won't even ask me for any name or anything because it's a free version, and I will install the free version. So if I double click on it, it is going to start the installation, and then I am going to finish this installation for my my open source. So the installation, even for the other one, pretty much goes the same. It's a ready API. The version of it is 1.9.0. This is the free version, SoapUI 5.3.0. So I say next, accept the license, go next, and it is going to install at this location. The location is program files. It is going to create a folder called Smart Bear, and then inside the Smart Bear, it is going to install that. So I will check all if you want to, or if you just want to continue. If you need the source, you would do that. And, it's not a big deal, so I'm just going to take it and hit OK, and it is asking me for the licensing exceptions, and then I do that. It is going to install some tutorials if you need to, so that's fine. And then finally, it is going to create a shortcut in the start menu, and also put a shortcut onto my desktop. So create a icon on my desktop. Okay, here it is. It is going to install it. As you can see, it would take less than like 2 minutes or 3 minutes for it to install it, and that will be the open source version of it. So the open source, the UI for the open source is not very complex, unlike the UI or the user interface of the ready API, which is the professional, or which is the pro version, or which is the license-based version that you have to pay $400. So you will use it for 14 days, and then after that it will expire, and you have to pay X amount of dollars. So right now I'm installing the non-pro or the free version, and as you can see, it's done, and it put a shortcut in there, and we are starting the SoapUI, which is the Smart Bear version of it, right? So as this is starting, I can also start this one. So that tells that on a machine you could have both on the machine. So right now I started the free version of it. So if you look into the free version, it's the firewall is needing permission. So on the free version, you have basically there is something called a start page, and some menu items here on the or the tool bar, and this is the menu items on the top. As we progress in this course, I'm going to be covering all of these menu items and what it basically consists of and all that. I will be doing that. Right now, if you can see, on this machine, I had the one of the versions running before, and this is taking it from there. So we have this. So what I am going to do is I'm going to start right from the beginning. So I will exit out, and we got to pick one of them. So as I said in my original presentation, that this version I will cover on day 3 or day 4 when I will do Groovy. I will cover the open source. Right now I will go to the pro version. So in the pro version, which is the ready API, basically we don't really need to write any code. We can configure our web service and we can test it. So as far as the configuration of a web service is concerned, you need to know the address, right, or the binding and contract, and that information is given to you in a file called a WSDL file. So what I am going to do is I'm going to share with you a bunch of WSDL files for us to do our testing. So one second. SoapUI, and over here is my Visual, and I will take very simple. I'll take the first one here, and I will share with you. I will paste it to everyone. You can basically copy it and put it on your browser. Open any browser, and then you could copy paste in there. Now, as you see, there is a lot of information here. See, this is XML and lot of information. All right. Okay. This is nothing but your Visual file. This is the Visual file. Now, today I will not show you as how to read this Visual file on your own. We will use the tool, SoapUI tool, to read the Visual file. And what do you mean by reading the Visual file? You have to make some sense out of this file. So if you see, there is so much of information here. How can you make sense out of this without knowing a lot of XML? So I will show you a trick tomorrow. I'll show you a trick tomorrow, and within less than 10 minutes, you will become an expert of understanding any Visual file. Any Visual file, not just this one. You can understand any Visual file. You'll become an expert of it in 10 minutes, because I'll show you a trick tomorrow as how to parse or how to read an Visual file. For now, we will make use of the tool to help us read the Visual file. So if you take a look, when I open the Ready API, it is giving me that, hey, you got 12 more days. So you could buy after 12 days. So that's fine. I would hit OK. Now, what you're looking at is, this is called the start page. This is the start page. And if you see over here, these are some tabs in here. Depending on what we are doing, we will be getting into projects of the SoapUI new generation tool. We'll be getting into that. This is for the functional testing. Now, there's load testing, and then there is about the security of the web services, and then there is something called mock services or virtual services. So our focus in this course is going to be more of a functional testing, but I will also touch base with the mock services and also touch base with the security of it, but the focus is more of a functional testing. Okay, so to start with the functional testing, we will go into File, and we will create what is called a workspace. So what is a workspace? A workspace is an area where you can be saving or storing all of your projects that you would be testing. So I will create a workspace. In my case, I will give it a name, so that down the road, if you come back to me and if you say that, hey, in January we did a boot camp, and on day one I want to know what project did you did on day one. So I want to create a workspace for day one. But in real life, this is nothing but this is going to be your build that you're going to be testing. So let's say it is going to be you have a project for Bank of America. Bank of America, and this is commercial loan web service testing, and this is a build and some XYZ build, so some number. So this could be the name of the workspace, right? So this could be the name of a workspace in case of a real life. So this is how you're going to be giving Bank of America commercial loan web service testing build whatever. So in my case, I'm going to be calling it day one, right? January 2017. And this is my workspace, right? So that's what it is. So when I hit OK, it is asking me to save this workspace. So what I want to do is I want to create a folder on my C drive. That folder, I will call it SoapUI Training. So if you see, you could call it whatever you want to, but I called it SoapUI Training. And inside SoapUI Training, I created another folder called SoapUI Workspace. So this is my workspace folder that I have created. There was nothing in there. I created that folder. And inside that folder, I have a bunch of them. So this is where I am saving this. So this is day one, January 2017 workspace. So I save that. So it says that, hey, If you have any other projects, do you want to save all those projects before switching and all that? Just say no. And basically what it is going to do now is it is going to create behind the scenes, it creates that workspace. Next thing is you have to create a project. Okay, so we'll go file and we'll say new. New what? We have to create a project. The project can be, are we doing a load testing? Are we doing a security testing, a virtual API testing, or a functional test? So we're going to be doing a functional test. So I will basically click on that. Once you click on that, it is saying that, hey, you want to do a functional testing. So do you have a WSDL to do that? So it's basically, it's either XML based or a REST API. So this is for REST, this is for XML. So I'll say that, okay, description file, I have the WSDL file, so start it. So once it starts, it basically would ask me for the file URL. So whatever I pasted, oh, not this one. So whatever I used here, the WSDL, so I'm just going to copy the WSDL and I will paste the WSDL. So this is basically pointing to my server, TrainingRite.net server, and on that I created a folder called TrainingRite ePay Systems, and in that folder is my web service. So I can do next, and when you do next, it is trying to connect to that web service. And after it connects to that web service, it says that, oh, you want to have single test or multiple tests, right? So it is asking you, do you want to have a single? So what I want to do at this time is, I'll just say cancel. I'll say cancel for now. What I'm going to do is, I will show you file new. I don't want to create it this way because this it will create the test cases and all that, and I want to show you from the right from the beginning. So this we will take this way of functional testing once we have some knowledge of what is a test case. So I want you to not even know what is a test case right now. So for that, if you go into a project, right? So if you go into a project, it will give you something similar like what we did before. So we have URI, we have description file. So it's a description file. So one more time, there are two ways to do it: file, new, and then we could take a functional test, or you could just go into a project. For now, go into a project, right? And project, if you have a REST service, you will go here, which eventually we will go on day 4 or day 5. Right now, I have a description file, WSDL file. So this is a WSDL file, so that is selected. So give a project a name. So if it was Bank of America, I would have given that. So this is ePay Systems Web Service Testing, right? And this is the endpoint where it is hosted. Now leave this as is, and hit OK. Now notice what happens. It is trying to connect, and then it comes back and it says that, okay, do you want me to generate a test suite, right? So if you cancel out of it, if you say they cancel out, I don't want to generate a test suite, right? Then when you cancel out, still it will do some work, and then it will give you here, as you can see, it gave you few things in here. Now this tool can be a little bit overwhelming because there is a lot of stuff in this tool. So many windows open, so many things, like as you can see here, many things are happening in here. So we have to be paying attention. In the beginning, I'll keep it very simple. In the next 15 minutes, I will test this web service, and I'll show you how to do the testing. And then tomorrow is going to be a real fun, because we will be doing, tomorrow itself I will be creating a data-driven test where we will get the data from Excel tomorrow, and I'll show you everything. But today, basically, I want to give you an overview of the tool. So if you look at, we were here start after creating the workspace, and after creating the project, we came in here. So now you should be looking into when you click here, take a look of what it shows over here, right? Okay, so right now, if you see, I if I click there, this tells that even though it is saying a project, but this will tell you what it is. So we are inside a, remember, day 1 January 2000 workspace. So I'm in a workspace. Inside a workspace, look at the hierarchy. Inside the workspace, you have this one. What is this? When you click on that, it'll tell you that it is a project. So inside a workspace, you have a project, and inside a project, you have one or more interfaces. So this is an interface. The reason we have two, right? And if you see, I expanded it. The reason we have two, inside both of them, we have the same things. The reason we have two is because of the backward compatibility. The developer gives you for the older version of SOAP and the newer version of the SOAP. The newer version is SOAP 1.2, which is SOAP 12, as you can see. This is the newer version. But for backward compatibility, that they give you the other one too. So if you want to delete one, you could right click and say remove. So the one of when that gets removed, and then we are looking at the most recent one. So what is there inside this interface? Inside the interface, it exposes all of these all of these operations. So if you look into it, it's an operation. Capture is an operation. Refund is an operation. Sale is an operation. So these are different operations. So operations are nothing but the functions that the developer had created inside the web service. So if you recall, a function can take some parameters, right? So inside each operation, if you expand, you have this request. And notice, once I double click on this request, you'll see something on the right side. So once I double click on this request, you will see the right side changing. And basically what you see here is there are two parts to it. There is basically this left side, and then there is a right side. In the left side, if you see, there is a form. Is outline, raw, and XML, right? So these four tabs. So these are the features of the Ready API, right? If I am using the SoapUI, which is the non-pro or the free version, they don't give you all these rich features. So what do you mean by rich features? This is nothing but it is telling you that, hey, for the sale operation to work, you have to send in the request these parameters. So one parameter, the first one is strcc. So in the documentation, if you go back here and remove this WSDL and hit, it should give you the documentation here. In the documentation, you could see that these are the operations. The following operations are exposed by this TREP system. So if you pick any operation, let's pick the sale operation. When you pick the sale operation, it is telling you that inside this, we will be sending, post means that we will be sending. We'll be sending to this address, to this web service using the HTTP protocol. We'll be sending the data to a host, to a web server, which is TrainingRite.net. And in there, this is the envelope I will be sending the data. So if you look into this envelope, there is the body, and then there is inside this body, we are sending the data to a sale as an operation. And what is the data that we are sending? And that is right here. This is the data that you are sending. So the data is for a credit card number. So you could come in here and put the credit card number. So let's say this is the credit card number that we put in here. Then this is the expiration. It's a string data type. Expiration is, let's say, 12, month is 12, CVV2 is 124, and year is, let's say, 2-digit year it is looking for, so it is like 19, and amount that I want to process is $438.24. So once I enter this information, I am sitting in New York and I want to send this information to this server. This server is in San Francisco in California. So from here, I will say this. So internally, all this will be packaged into a SOAP envelope like that. It will be packaged into a SOAP envelope like that. So you are not seeing it because we are looking at the easy interface. If you want to look into the XML interface, now you can see this is, and I will increase the font in the next class, but I will show it to you here what that data is. And if you look into it, that data is basically the SOAP envelope, and this is the header, this is the body, and we are sending the data to the sale. What is this TEM? I'll explain it to you tomorrow. And then we are sending it to sale. We are sending what? We are sending the credit card, and this is what the data is going for the credit card number. Then I'm sending the data, which is month is 12. This is for the month. And I'm sending 124 as the CVV2, 19 as the year, and then if you see, this amount is 438, and this is in the sale. This is in the sale in the body of the envelope. I am sending this data. So if you go in here, this is how we package the data. Now I'm sending it. So if you go back and if you look into it, this is my tool, and I'm sending the data. So let's say if this was your application, whether it's a mobile device, you would have gathered the data, and the data would be sent across to the server. So now if you see, I'm sending the data across to the server. When I send the data, there's so many things in the bar. If you see, there's this log window, there's HTTP logs, Jetty logs, this and that. So we will come to it, we'll look into that, and if you see here, there is this window, there is this window. We'll look at, so as we progress, there are so many things. There is something in here we got to look into. So we'll be looking into all of this. Right now, let me get started. So basically, I'm passing this information to the server, to the sale request. So this is the sale request. So when I send this information, this is the response that I will receive. So here I go, I send it, and the response I got can be in XML again. As you can see, if I take this response, copy it, and go back in here, and paste this to show you that when we send this, this is the response I got. The response again is the SOAP envelope. Inside this is the SOAP body, and this is the response for the sale. And what did I get? In the sale result, I get your sale transaction for the credit card number which we sent, which is 456 and all that. So for this number, it says that okay, it was approved with the approval code of, it generated this approval code, and the transaction number is, it generated that transaction number. So that's the response that we are receiving from the server. That's the response that we are receiving. These are the different ways of looking at the response. That's the response that we are receiving. Now, if you look into the logs, let me go into this HTTP, right click and clear, and when I send this request, see, we have some information here. So what did we send, what did we receive, and just to highlight one thing, it is HTTP 200. So tomorrow I will show you as how to understand these logs, right? And not only understand these logs, but let's say if the we are sending one part of it, right? So what if I have to send, let's say in my test data, if I go and I say that I have to send lot of data for different credit cards, and I need to find out what happens. So if you look at it, you'll see that when we are sending the credit card information, the credit card number belongs to different credit cards. Expirations are different. There is good data and bad data. So in the CVV2, it's supposed to get some numeric characters, but I'm sending some bad data. And the amount to process is, as you can see, 200, 400, 600, whatever. And then I also have amount to process is this one, ABCD. So when ABCD is not a valid data. So what happens? How can you test with a happy path scenario and a negative data and come back and show the results? And how can we data drive from Excel is what we're going to be looking in the next class. So in a nutshell right now, what we have done is I have given you some introduction to the architecture of a web service in terms of there will be a server. The server will have some operating system, Unix, Linux, or Windows, and on that we will be deploying our web service, which is nothing but some code written in a language using some functions. And there should be a software called web server software, and that web server can be anything. It can be WebLogic, it can be WebSphere, Tomcat, JBoss, and the job of that web service is to open the information that is coming in here, and then basically passing it to the server and then sending the response back. So to configure that, to do the testing, we can use any one of the two tools. So I happen to use this first tool, which is the SoapUI non-pro that I just opened, but I did not configure it. Then I went into Ready API, and in order to configure, you need the WSDL. So I use the WSDL to configure it, and then once we configure, you notice that there should be a workspace, and inside the workspace you will have a project, and inside the project you will have an interface, and an interface exposes all of these operations. And I have just tested one operation. Now there are so many different operations. So for that we need something called a test suite. So tomorrow we're going to be generating a test suite, and then we will be data driving that test suite by fetching the data from Excel and some other sources, and then sending the data to the server on a mass scale, and then receiving the response and reading logs and doing some assertions and all that good stuff. Okay, so I'm going to stop here today. The assignment for today is I want you to give me a screenshot like that. So when you give me a screenshot like this, what does it tell me? That it tells me that this person not only, so the day one assignment is you give me this screenshot. So this person not only followed everything, but he or she went and he downloaded basically the information of the tool from the website, installed the tool, and got my WSDL, configured that, and passed some data to it, and got some response back, and got the logs in here. So the question here is, are you going to tell us to get the server info such as the operating system? That is, yeah, it's right here in the log. If you can see in the logs, I will tell you right away in the logs. So we went to, I was going to tell you tomorrow, but I will tell you right away. We went to the server, right? So this, I post this data to this server using the HTTP. It went there, and as you can see, it is telling me something about this. If you go in here, it tells me that the server has a Microsoft IIS version 8, and it is running a .NET using ASP.NET version 4.3, and that's basically the information that you are going to get from the logs. So I'll show it to you tomorrow by going line by line. When I run, I will do line by line, and I will show it to you a little bit more of the details tomorrow while we are reading the logs, because we should be reading these logs too, right? So I'll clear, and then when we run, we will be getting these logs. What is this? What we send? And when you see here what we receive, so if I clear it and if I send it, so we got some information instantly right away. So I will, when we do some parsing tomorrow, I will intentionally, with the bad data, create a response of 500, and we will understand why we are getting that response of 500. What did we do wrong that we got that response of 500? So we got to look into the data, the input data, and then we got to look into some assertions in terms of some SOAP fault. How do you read a SOAP fault? How do you read HTTP status codes and all that? So tomorrow is going to be a very interesting class. So let me take your questions right now. If you have any questions, I'll take your questions. If you want to unmute yourself, you can do that and talk to me, or you can put it in the chat and I will read your questions. So I don't think that I covered one of the questions that was, when is REST versus SOAP service used and why. So there's a whole 1 hour lecture on that I'll talk, but I briefly gave you some information about it, and then I showed you about that. So email address to send the screenshot, thank you so much for send it to TrainingRite, or send it to this, my IRFAN @trainingrite.com. Okay, let me send it to you. So IRFAN at trainingrite.com. That's my first name, Irfan at trainingrite.com. So that's where you will be sending the screenshot. And in your subject, just put your name in your subject, or somewhere in the email should be your name. That way I know that you have submitted it. Otherwise, I have to map your email to your name. So it is better if you submit your name. Just in the subject, just say the name, and then I would know that you have submitted the assignment. Okay, let me take any other questions if you have. If you don't have a question, let's wrap it up, and let's call it a day. And we'll meet again, same place, same time tomorrow, 7:30. And I will do some data-driven testing tomorrow. So your assignment is actually due next Monday, because you should be submitting day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. So if you want to keep up with me, and like today itself, if you want to submit it, that's fine, because we did not do much as far as today's assignment is concerned. So you should be able to download the software, install it, and configure it, and within 15-20 minutes you should be done. Take a screenshot and send it my way. Okay, so I'm done for the day. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to let you guys go, and I will see you back same place, same time tomorrow. And have a good night, and I'll see you again same place tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Ron. Very good start.
Thank you. Thank you.